Hey, welcome to the Swinetime podcast. I'm your host, Brian Swinehart. Today I want to talk to you guys about a book I read. Yeah, can you believe it? I read a book. Yeah, this is a book that my very good friend Robert Aceves gave to me. It's a great book. Uh, it's by Phil Jackson, the basketball coach, and it's called 11 Rings. Okay, Phil Jackson, 11 Rings. Phil Jackson was the basketball coach for the Bulls when they had Michael Jordan, and he was the basketball coach with the Lakers when they had Kobe Bryant. And he accumulated 11 NBA championship rings. In his When he was young, he was a basketball player himself. He played with the Knicks, and he was a good player. He was sixth man usually, which meant that he was the first one off the bench, but he got a lot of playing time, a lot of starting. And basically, this book is a lot about his methods and his strategies and his thinking on how to get the players to work together. Because on these teams, he had a lot of egos to deal with, and he used a lot of meditations and a lot of visualizations to get his team to work together and play together. Another thing he often did was give his players books that were specific to each player. And he said some players read the books and some players didn't, but he would, kind of think about what the player needed in their life, and then he would give them a book. So he was a good leader. He was kind of like a father figure, probably, to a lot of these players, and he always put good people beside him. His assistant coach helped him a lot, and they came up with triangle offense, which is the offense that they used that became really effective. It was a type of offense that passed the ball around a lot, and he was very creative with it. But he had to sell some of his players into wanting to use the offense, because it meant that a lot of them had to be less selfish. And he kind of talked about Kobe Bryant with that, because Kobe was kind of a more of a guy who liked to try to do everything on his own, and and then he talked about Michael Jordan. And Michael Jordan, he said, really had the work ethic and the determination, and he brought the people up to his level. But he had a problem with people that weren't working as hard as him. But Michael was so good that it was hard for people to keep at that level, and he didn't sometimes understand that. And Phil Jackson worked with him on that. And Phil Jackson also, something that stuck out to me was he would sit the team down sometimes and they would meditate. And he would just have them meditate for like 5 minutes or something. And he did that just to kind of get them all in sync and together. And so he gives a lot of insights onto things, and about letting things go, and about moving forward on things, and just kind of accepting things that happen, and learning from them, and the losses and the victories. And I grew up kind of watching Michael Jordan stuff now, and so when he went into that a lot was pretty interesting, because Michael was playing. He had played. They won 3 straight years in a row, and then Michael went to play baseball, and he said he was done. And then Michael came back, and they won another 3 years in a row. And he talks about when Michael got food poisoning, and he had like 103-degree temperature, fever, and he kept playing, and just kind of his perseverance to win. And I just and I'm not even like so I'm not a big basketball fan per se. It's not my I was a wrestler, so during wrestling season basketball was going on, so I'm not really that informed of basketball. I mean, I know all the rules, and I watch it, and I can I understand it and everything, but I'm not well versed in a lot of the strategies or things. But you don't have to be to get what Phil Jackson is talking about in this book. I mean, even if you're not a basketball fan, some of the things that he teaches, and some of the things regarding patience and development, you can pick up off of this book. I really enjoyed the book a lot. In fact, I was reading a book, and I was on a flight, and Scottie Pippen was on my airplane, and so I thought that was kind of random. Don't know if I would ever go talk to Scottie Pippen. He looks kind of like a mean dude, but but he was on my airplane, and I thought, wow, that's wild. Here I am reading about his coach, and we're on the same airplane. Uh, we were sitting in different places. He was sitting in first class, and I was sitting by the toilet in the back, but we were still on the same airplane. So it's a good book. It's if you're a basketball fan, I would definitely say you need to read this. Now my friend Robert, he told me about the book. He actually loaned me the book when I was going through a little tough time trying to get my life back together. When I had decided that I was going to do another wrestling tournament, he gave me the book, and so I think that it's definitely worth it. It's a fun read. It's easy to read. I read it. You can read it. So for this book review, I would say definitely check this book out. Phil Jackson, 11 Rings. He talks a lot about Buddhist ideas. Just kind of being in it. Like he says, when they're playing the game, when they're playing on the team, that sometimes you just have to not force things. A lot of times Kobe Bryant in particular would force things. He would try to force a score, force an opportunity, but by forcing it would cause him to make mistakes rather than kind of being in the game and letting the game come to him and flowing naturally. And that is something that can be taken on in anything in life, as far as it's my job as a comedian. Sometimes I know when I'm on stage I'm trying to force too hard to be funny or force the jokes too much. It comes off fake, not natural. The crowd can sense it. The crowd can sense you're trying to force it. Where if you're just sitting back in the moment with the crowd, telling the jokes, having fun naturally, not trying to push, not trying to force anything, it flows better and it's more natural, more organic. So it was great, man. And I think that's something that's fun to do, is just kind of learn from people who've had success, whether it be in your business or a different business or something you like sports. I mean, because sports to me are great. I know that there's a lot you can say they're overpaid, and I don't personally think that taxpayers should have to pay for stadiums, especially when most of us can't even afford to buy a ticket at the games. However, I think that there's a lot to be learned from sports. And growing up, for me, sports were such a great learning tool. Teach you how to work with others, and it forces you to want something, set goals, and that's something he talks about too, is setting goals and kind of being realistic too, because sometimes he knew his teams were better than other times, and it was great. Another thing I liked about the book is he talked a lot about the battles between Shaq and Kobe, and getting those personalities to gel, which is a job amongst itself, because when players are making that much money, they're in the spotlight all the time. It can cause some animosity, and to see how he was able to get them to work together and get the championships was very cool. So there's a lot to be learned about that. He talks a little bit too about his motorcycle rides and going across country and just kind of getting his mind clear and doing all the work that needed to get these guys to be in a successful spot in their careers. I mean, with the team. So this is definitely recommended. I liked it, and it was easy to read. If you like basketball, definitely get it. It's Phil Jackson. There's a picture of him. I'm sure you probably already know who he is. 11 Rings. Probably pick it up anywhere. And yeah, man, the soul of success. He says right there on the bottom, right there, the soul of success. And it's a pretty thick word. Oh, I got this one thing I learned. This is one thing I meant to tell you guys too. I wrote this note down from the book. Primary cause of suffering is our desire for things to be different than they are. That's something I think he got it from a Buddhist quote, but he wrote it in the book. Primary cause of suffering is for things to be different than they are. That's really true, man, because when you want things to be different than they are, you start causing your own self-suffering. I wish this was a mansion instead of an apartment. Well, now I'm causing pain on myself, right? I'm wishing that my life was different than it is. Or if I just say, hey, man, I live in an apartment. It's cool. I like it. Boom, not suffering anymore. But if I sit here and say, man, I want a big house, but I ain't got it. Oh, I'm wishing for things to be different, So it was a great book. That's it. I just wanted to do a little book review. A shout out to Darren Carter, who told me I should be doing some book reviews. He said he don't know if anybody cares about book reviews because they don't read books anyways nowadays with technology and Instagram. But I still believe people read books. It's a great way to learn. It's a great way to kill some time, and it's a great way to improve yourself and have some extra knowledge behind you. So I'll be doing some more book reviews coming up soon. Once again, Phil Jackson, 11 Rings. You know what time it is. It's Swinetime.